Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and this is the second in my series of videos called The Art of Happiness. Today we're going to explore what is happiness. So in the previous video we did why is happiness important. Now we're talking about what is happiness. And we have to define some other terms along the way to kind of understand the gist of what I'm trying to say. So happiness. When I talk about happiness, we must separate it from euphoria. So euphoria are those moments of joy, the happy memories. So that sort of euphoria you feel when you're with your friends or you're having a thrilling experience. Those are temporary, okay? Temporary fluctuations, but I wouldn't necessarily call them happiness. I label them euphoria for the purposes of this discussion. Happiness for this discussion will be sort of defined as sort of a long-term contentment. Okay, so being a content with one's existence and an appreciation for one's mortality. Basically, you're not necessarily upset by the fact that one day you will no longer exist, but but at the same time you're happy to be alive. You're content that you exist because you feel you have purpose. You feel that you're working towards that purpose, and you feel that your existence has a role in something larger, okay? And again, a lot of people are probably getting the impression that I'm alluding to some sort of necessarily spiritual belief. That's not necessary. The idea is to find some sort of system and for you to participate in that system, okay? So whether whether it is to further one cause or another cause or to fight against one cause, the idea is that you have to find a role for yourself. And we'll talk more about that when I talk about how to become happy. But basically the contentment and the sense of purpose that comes from that is part of happiness. Again, so basically one, a feeling of purpose. Two, an acceptance of your mortality. Okay, and an understanding of the questions that you have. Okay, and generally this is on the opposite end. This is what's unhappiness. Okay, unhappiness is the opposite of those things. One, lacking a purpose, lacking acceptance of your own mortality. You're scared to die. You feel like you aren't part of the world. And on the third thing. What happens is you don't have an understanding of your questions. So there's so many different unknowns in your world that you become frustrated. One of the biggest characteristics to me that I've noticed between people I've seen who are happy versus unhappy are unhappy people are just seemingly frustrated. They don't understand the world. They have a lot of questions about the world, yet they don't seek to try to understand those questions or answer those questions. They just let those questions sort of consume their life instead of trying to. So let people will go, I hate this role that I play in the world, or I hate the circumstances that I'm in. But usually you hate the circumstances that you're in because you don't understand the circumstances that you're in. Okay, so for example, someone may be unhappy because they were rejected. Okay, because they don't understand why they got rejected. Because if they understood that, they wouldn't have asked the question in the first place. Generally, if you ask someone a question, you have an expectation of what the answer will come to be, if it's a yes or no question. And you have an understanding of why that answer would be, because that's why I would give you the proposition. So if that's not so basically if I ask you out expecting you to say yes, because the only reason I would ask you out is because I think there'd be a chance for you to say yes. When you say no, I'll be upset. I will be unhappy. Okay? And I'll also have a moment of despair. So the despair is kind of like the equivalent of euphoria. These are the temporary sort of dips down and up. So not to be confused with unhappiness. Unhappiness is more like a sort of long-term frustration. Okay, so when you're unhappy, when you're just feeling like, why, I don't get it. What's the block here? Okay? And basically the unifying thing that dictates this is knowledge. Okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone needs to be smart to be happy. It depends on the questions you have about life. If you have relatively few questions, you can be a relatively not so smart but very happy person because the amount of questions you have to answer for yourself are minimal. But if you're a very curious person, the burden to happiness becomes much more difficult because the amount of knowledge you have to attain to to answer those questions and have the understanding becomes very difficult. Okay, so the four concepts here to understanding the paradigm of how I'm discussing about this: happiness is again um, a sense of purpose. Two, an acceptance of your mortality, and three, an understanding of the world and your circumstances. Okay, or an appreciation for it. And then unhappiness is the opposite. And these are sort of the long term. So these are more like you can have moments of euphoria. You can be an unhappy person and have moments of euphoria. You can be a happy person and have moments of despair. But what's sort of your I hate to use this word in this context, but what's sort of your equilibrium? Are you typically when those moments of euphoria and despair fade away, where do you default to? Do you default to unhappy or do you default to happy? This is sort of what we're trying to understand. And preferably, okay, this is a value statement, we all preferably would rather be happy. So in the next part of the series, we're going to understand what are the steps to become happy. Okay, thank you very much. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com.